One of our most successful videos during the campaign was what you might not expect. It wasn't even about the Canadian election per se. It was about what might happen in Alberta if the Canadian election goes the wrong way. And it was done by our friend Syd Fizzard, our journalist in Calgary, and he joins us now to give us not just the Alberta view, but the what if Alberta view. Syd, great to see you.
Hey, likewise, happy to be joining you guys tonight. It's a very exciting night, and I know a lot of people are on the edge of their seat right now.
You know, this morning, Donald Trump tweeted again. It was sort of a funny tweet. I didn't understand it, the first words. It said, vote for the candidate who'll cut your taxes in half, give you a strong military. And it took me a second to realize he was talking about himself. Of course, he's not on the ballot. Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney are. And he was saying, come on, be the 51st state. I think a lot of Canadians found that a kind of indecent proposal, like going up to a married couple and saying to the woman, hey, ditch him and come with me. It's sort of, in a way, it is indecent, unless you were about to get divorced anyways, unless you had a breakdown in your marriage and you wanted an exit. And I think in Alberta, that is the province that has had the most resonance with the Trump offer. And if Mark Carney wins, I think that separatism, whether it's to join the states or to be independent, I think is going to double. What do you think, Syd?
100%, 100%. And we're seeing this in Alberta, in Saskatchewan as well. This is really something that you see in Western provinces because their representation in Parliament is just not where it is for Ontario and Quebec. These provinces have a stranglehold over Ottawa, and oftentimes Alberta issues aren't being properly represented. And, you know, from our perspective, America, it does kind of present a pretty good deal. Now, a lot of separatists don't want to go the whole 9 yards and, you know, separate to join America, although that might be an inevitability if that does happen. But either way, the separation movement is going to skyrocket if Mark Carney becomes elected, because we've already had 10 years, well, let alone that, we've had decades of neglect here in Alberta from Ottawa. And Mark Carney is just the next makeup style on the face of the Liberal parties. And I think a lot of voters are seeing that.
Sheila, what do you think?
Well, you know, we talk about Alberta as the most separatist province right now in Confederation, more so than Quebec, but actually it's Saskatchewan. Alberta has 1 in 3 people who are expressing separatist sentiments if the Liberals form the next government, and it's 33%, that number in Saskatchewan. And I think it is astounding because there's no leader to this movement. There's nobody making overt offers to us outside of just a few posts to Truth Social. Nobody's saying, like, you can join the United States if your assets are 1 for 1, or there's no political movement behind this. And 1 in 3 people across the prairies are ready to march out the door. Syd, I know you've done a lot of what we call streeters, man on the street interviews on this. Are people eager or are they reluctant? I ask people when I cover the Poilievre rallies, and they seem really reluctant. You know, they don't want to be separatists, but when I ask them, like, hey, what if the East gives us a Carney prime minister? And they say, well, then there's nothing here for us. Are the people you talk to, are they eager or reluctant?
Well, it's both, right?
Yeah.
Because they do want a change. They do want opportunity. They do want the things that have been neglected for so long. And part of that is, well, there is dismay because look at myself, you know, how many Albertans are actually from Ontario? I'm actually from Toronto, right? I've been living here for a few years. And it's just so palpable, the plight against Ottawa here and the fact that they have been neglected. So it is both. It is excitement to see, you know, the opportunities that might be out there. But it is also, you know, a bit of remorse because you want to have a good relationship with your federal government. You want to have a good relationship with the rest of the country. But if the ruling party simply doesn't want that, simply sees you as something that they can neglect, well, obviously you're not going to want to stick around. And this is, you know, I asked people on the streets, and I asked some people at the Pierre Poilievre's event here in Calgary, you know, is balkanization on the ballot? And a lot of people think so. They don't think that it's going to be, you know, the immediate next thing that happens after the election, but that sentiment is going to skyrocket.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. I have a text into the Premier of Alberta. From time to time, she hops on the Skype to give us an update at Rebel News. I think she'll want to very carefully see the results, and if it's a dramatic result, she may confer with her team before making a statement. But I'll see if I can get her to give some sort of comment tonight. I'm not saying it's impossible for the Conservatives to win tonight, but a lot of people say don't believe the polls, the pollsters are liars. Could be. I mean, the pollsters said there was a microscopic chance that Donald Trump would win in 2016, and the pollsters were wrong. My favorite pollster in Canada, David Coletto, said that there's a shy voter, or there's sort of a syndrome that sometimes people don't tell the truth to pollsters. They say a socially acceptable answer. They give sort of a peer pressure answer. He said that there was a kind of statistical error that could creep in, and that might explain things. But I think it feels like desperation when people are saying, oh, the polls are all wrong. 10 different pollsters, all trying to get the title of being the most accurate pollster. I don't think it's a conspiracy of pollsters, and I know people are saying that I shouldn't trust pollsters. I just don't think 10 people are trying to trick us.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, after you.
No, I'm here all night.
Well, it is very interesting to see the polls that have been coming out, and the fact that polls have been a dividing factor for some voter. Do they believe it? Do they not believe it? It is very interesting, and it has been, from a lot of their perspective, a difficult election because of the influence that Trump has had on it, and because of the reskinning of the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. But I think one thing that is interesting is the fact, and you guys have mentioned it earlier on in this live stream, is the Green Party and the NDP. They're both tanking to give support to the Liberal Party of Canada. And if I could add one note on that, it's that how disingenuous of a party do you have to be if your whole campaign platform is to help another party? After this election, if they still exist, I think that would be a shame.
Well, I think both parties are tricksters, and I think some of their conduct was questionable. It would be as if someone faked a car accident to get a settlement, and both sides were in on it. That's how it feels like. That's how it's felt for the last couple of years with Jagmeet Singh. Like he was play fighting. He wasn't genuinely fighting. Syd, it's great to see you. And once again, congratulations. I think your video, your street. In fact, Efron, why don't we dig up Syd's video and play a couple minutes of it? Because I think that was actually the most viral video that we've had so far in the campaign. You obviously did two things. You struck a nerve, but you also gave people a voice. Here's the thing, and I'm so old, Syd. I remember Ted Byfield and the Alberta Report decades ago, before the internet, when Preston Manning started the Reform Party. And the Alberta Report magazine sort of made this promise to its viewers. We will report accurately on the growth of the Reform Party, and we will report fairly and honestly, and you can find out what's going from us. I mean, they were also supporters, but simply the act of not disparaging and not lying and not gotcha-ing the growing Reform Party made Alberta Report a very important magazine, and it made people love it, because all the other newspapers in the country, all the TV stations, they couldn't talk about the Reform Party without spitting. And I think that if Mark Carney wins tonight, and if that's the starter pistol for Alberta separatism, what can people expect from Rebel News? I think they can expect, that we will give a fair hearing to separatism. We will treat their people with respect. We won't mock them. We won't denounce them. We will listen to them and their genuine grievances, and that will distinguish us from the absolute total war that will be waged on these people by the CBC and the rest of the regime media. So that's my promise to Alberta, the province of my birth. Hey, Syd, let's close with some clips from your video. Do we have those handy? Yeah, looks like we do. Let's watch a bit from your viral vid, Syd.
After generations of neglect and abuse by the federal government in Ottawa, many in Alberta have had enough and are strongly considering a move towards provincial independence. This feeling has escalated drastically in the past few months as the Liberal Party has not only provoked a trade war with the world's biggest superpower and our closest ally, the United States, but also allowed for the expat globalist Mark Carney to replace Trudeau as Prime Minister without an election, mandate from Canadians, or even a seat in the House of Commons. Now, recently, Rebel News conducted a poll through Ledger, showing that if given the option to separate from Canada and join the United States, 10% of the province would agree. And if the Liberals win the next election, this jumps to 15%. But remember, this is a poll on separating and joining the United States. Today, however, the topic is simply separating from Canada once and for all. Mere days ago, an election was called, but for many Albertans, the damage has already been done. For separatists, two outcomes have risen to the forefront. Either the federal party that wins will adhere to the provincial demands laid out by Premier Danielle Smith, and Alberta retains its Confederation status, or a referendum for independence will be held in the near future, which could solidify plans for the province to separate from Canada once and for all.
Canada would consider an energy embargo on the United States. And I want to, as leverage, what do you think, what do you make of what she said?
Well, first of all, it's oil and gas is owned by the provinces, principally Alberta, and we won't stand for that. And you should never, ever threaten something you cannot do.
If they were to proceed down that path for some reason, what would be Alberta's response?
Well, they will have a national unity crisis on their hands at the same time as having a crisis with our U.S. trade partners.
We interviewed Alberta lawyer and separation advocate Jeffrey Rath during his press release today, March 26th, to see exactly what the independence movement is planning and how likely separation actually is.
Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion.
The video goes on for a bit. I'd hate to interrupt it, but I just want to encourage people, if they want to see the rest of the video, they can go to our homepage. Syd, great to catch up with you. Thanks for your work out west. And it may be the West that decides this election. I mean, it could be pretty much, because the polls are so close, it could be tied up, and it could be British Columbia that resolves it. Of course, we have Drea Humphrey in the Greater Vancouver area, and Katrina Panova is on the island. Syd, keep up the fight out there.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and happy voting.
Yeah.
Yeah.